Hi guys, and welcome to part 4 of Gym Closure Survival Guide. Please forgive the outfit. I've just finished doing a back mobility video, which hopefully I'll get out in the next day or two. Okay, so picking up where we left off last time. The last session we looked at stress and how internal and external demands can conspire to create what we described as overload. And over a period of time, this overload can lead to a position where we're sort of unable to cope with our daily routine, which results in varying degrees of stress. Now, to give us a fighting chance of being able to deal with that, what I wanted to do today was to look at 3 areas or 3 phrases that I often use when I'm talking to people. The first one is what I call survival by adaptation. The second one is social hypnosis, and the third one is a phrase that, if I'm honest, I nicked from a guy called Dr. Richard Colson. It's a term he used called a thought attack. Now, what do we actually mean by survival by adaptation? Well, to be honest with you, that's why we're here today doing what we do. For millennia after millennia, the nature of the beast is survival by adaptation. It's the reason why the human race has survived as long as it has. Now, social hypnosis, this is the process by which we adapt to survive. Now, a lot of it goes unnoticed. So in the context of sort of today's society, what we're talking about are the people that we're surrounded by, the places that we go, the social constructs within which we try to live, and of course the media, which is the big one. Now, all of those serve to influence us to one degree or another, and very often it goes unnoticed, but it will significantly influence our ability to deal with both internal and external demands, which ultimately will dictate how many thought attacks it is that we experience on a regular basis. Now, these thought attacks are a product of our mindset. Now, in order to get a handle on the thought attacks, we've got to be able to understand a little bit more about our mindset and what goes on between the ears. And in doing that, we're then better able to cope with the stresses that we experience. So I've actually added a little PowerPoint to the end of this video to try and explain in a bit more detail. But essentially, there's an old metaphor that I came across about 20 years ago, which I've included in the visual, and it's what I describe as Mr. Buckethead. Now, it looks at how in the early stages when we're dealing with stress, if we look at all these internal, external demands as filling a bucket, there comes a point at time at which the bucket will begin to overflow, and that's sort of the parallel between us and all the kind of challenges that go into that bucket before we overflow. Now, the most common way of dealing with this, and the use of Mr. Buckethead over the last 20 years, is to put a tap in place, which is referred to as a coping mechanism. And by and large, these coping mechanisms do help us to get through day by day, week by week. But the difficulty is that a lot of these coping mechanisms focus on trying to influence the external demands. Now, these external demands, in a nutshell, are the things that we have very little control over. So in my mind, it makes more sense to try and influence the things that we do have a bit more control over. So effectively, do we spend our time and energy trying to influence the things that are pretty much outside of our control? Or do we take the time and effort to begin to understand why it is that we interpret and see a lot of these external demands in the way in which we do? So the idea is that we focus more of our attention on the things that we can control, which is, in essence, our mindset. Now, it's not easy. It's something that takes a fair degree of time and practice to get used to. I mean, I've been doing this for about 15 years and still struggle on quite a regular basis with various aspects of it. So it's not something that you're going to get overnight, but it's certainly worth pursuing. So what I would say, in a nutshell, if you have the opportunity, I've picked up a couple of books here. In addition to the chimp paradox, which I mentioned about a week ago, This one here by Richard Carlson, You Can Be Happy No Matter What. One of the first books that I read on this kind of subject. Absolutely fantastic. The guy, I was going to say is a genius, but sadly, if memory serves me correct, he's no longer with us. But fantastic book. And again, this was the very first one that I looked at. I'm guessing probably about 20 years ago now, maybe 15. What the guy does very, very well, consistent with the chimp paradox, is he communicates real life situations in a manner that we can understand and relate to. So I think if you're going to pursue this kind of managing your mindset, please take the time to pick up these two publications and really begin to get to grips with it. In the meantime, what I'll endeavour to do is take some of this vast array of information and distill it down for you so that the next gym survival guide will be about managing your mindset. In the meantime, guys, if you get any questions at all, do the usual. Please drop me something on the club app or Facebook, or email me or whatever. I think I'm beginning to lose track now, but I think we're on about the end of week 4 of the lockdown. But please, we're on Friday. Have a fantastic weekend, guys, and I look forward to catching up with you next week at some stage. Bye for now.